Keep that which is committed to thy trust, avoiding profane and vain babblings. And oppositions of science, falsely so called. The word science here, it's the technology we know by that name, but rather knowledge falsely so called, pseudo-scholarship. Now, denotatively speaking, Paul was probably talking about the Gnostic cults that claimed some special spiritual knowledge. The Greek word for knowledge is gnosis. Science falsely so called. But boy, are we in a strange society. We are products of Western civilization which had a commitment for 1,000 years to the pursuit of truth. And many of those great champions of what's called Western civilization would be shocked to discover that we live in a culture which makes truth outlawed in our schools. There's a concept in information sciences. There's a thing called disorder and order, noise, signal, cacophony or music, chaos, cosmos. These are all, each one's the opposite extreme of the other, randomness and design. These things on the left are randomness, call that, the technical term is entropy. Randomness, chaos, disorder, no order. The stuff on the right is called information. Order, whether it's signal and noise, order versus disorder, design versus randomness, and so forth. And the trend, if in life, is for things that are ordered to drift to disorder, always. That's one of the laws of entropy. Now, randomness involved, when you study randomness in mathematics, there's two different kinds of processes, deterministic and stochastic. Deterministic process is 2 + 2 = 4, always. Stochastic processes are statistical. You know, what is the height of the average man? Well, that's a statistic, right? This has a mean, a variance, whatever. You suddenly plunged into places where randomness is a variable. And in the real world, scientific world, you have occasion to need a random number. It turns out, when you understand what randomness is, they are very difficult to find because the best you can do is get what they call a pseudo-random number. And it turns out that in 1955, the Rand Corporation, the granddaddy of all the big scientific think tanks, published a book called 1 Million Random Digits. And that book may sound to a layman as it's a book with random numbers. You open that book, and it literally is a series of numbers that are random. You say, what on earth? Why does it take a big think tank with supercomputers to publish a book of random numbers? You got to be kidding. No. You have to. I bring this up to show you so you'll understand what randomness is. This is not as trivial as it sounds. They had supercomputers go through those numbers again and again and again and again to make sure that there was no symmetry, no predictability. Its defining characteristic is that total absence of design. Randomness and design are opposite as it is possible to be opposite. We live in a society in which our schools are prohibited from teaching the concept of intelligent design. Our teachers are inculcated and forced to teach the idea that the most elegant designs in the universe, designs that are so elegant we hardly even understand them, happen by accident, by randomness. That's why, when I teach this thing, I wear this set of beads. And these are a series of black and white beads. And I'm going to tell you a story. I spilled these beads on my floor by accident, but when I picked them up, I made sure I didn't want that to happen again, so I just decided to put them on a piece of thread. So I picked them up randomly and put them on a piece of thread. And after I did this, there's 247 of them, for those of you interested. I think I've got some information on that. Yeah, here we are. There they are. This is a little test. You're going to get epistemological IQ out of this. Okay. Now, in this sequence here, as I picked them up off the floor just by chance, put them on the string. But then I looked at it more closely. There's 2 dots, dit. And then there's a dash dot. That's N, I-N, right? Then there's a T, an H, and an E in Morse code. In the, there's a B, an E, a G, an I, another N. It spells, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And I picked these up all by accident off the floor of my workshop. How many believe that? Why? How many of you think I'm putting you on? How many you think I'm pulling your leg, right? Why do you think that? I'll tell you why you think that. Was this accidental? Or did I do this deliberately? I happen to be a radio ham, so it took me 15 minutes, all right? 347 beads here. An alphabet of 2, black and white, right? So there's only 2 types, black and white. Any particular sequence is 2 raised to the 347th power. 1 chance in 2 to 3. That turns out to be 2.8669 with 104 zeros after it. That's a very big number. This, as a binary number, represents a binary number of 347 bits is a huge number. It's a number that's, can you visualize a number with 104 zeros after it? It's a big number. How big is it? Borel's law in physics says that any number that has more than 50 zeros is defined as absurd. In other words, a probability of 1 chance in 10 with 50 zeros. See, in mathematics, there's an occasion where you need to have a cutoff. And so they decided the most absurd, that's defined as absurd. Any probability that's more rare than 1 chance in 10 to the 50th is defined in physics as absurd. Well, this isn't 50, it's 104. Okay? So for this to have happened by accident is not just unlikely, it is defined in physics as absurdly impossible. Well, let's take a different case. Let's not take an alphabet of 2. Let's take your hemoglobin molecule. That happens to be a chain of 574 elements long, and it's not an alphabet of 2, it's an alphabet of 20. Okay? That's a little different formula, a little more complicated. If I take a binary string of 347 elements with only 2, it's 2 to the 104 power. The hemoglobin molecule, 574 elements with an alphabet of 20, turns out to be 10 with 650 zeros after it. Not 50, 650. Now, you won't let me con you that this happened by accident, and yet you allow our teachers to tell our kids that the hemoglobin molecule happened by accident. It's so complex that we only begin to understand all this. And by the way, in the hemoglobin, only one of those sequences is not fatal. The others are fatal. Hemoglobinopathy. Remember, Borel's law, 10 to the minus 50. There's only 10 to the 18th seconds in the history of the universe if you assume 60 billion years. There's only 10 to the 66th atoms in our entire galaxy. These are big numbers. We're not talking, only 10 to the 8th particles in our galaxy. Anything greater than 10 to the minus 50, absurd. So the specificity of hemoglobin is far beyond any possibility of it having happened by chance. It's equivalent to winning the lottery. Most of you know state lottery, right? How much? Winning it every day for 90 days in a row. That's pretty unlikely. Huh? And the genetic code that lies inside is so complex, we're just beginning to get a glimmer to it. It has punctuation. It has an alphabet. It's been designed. It's designed to be error correcting. And on it goes. See, the school will teach you that matter plus energy plus randomness produces life. That's not true. Matter plus energy plus information makes life. You can't explain where information came. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Which came first, the DNA or the protein? You can't have DNA without protein. You can't have protein without the DNA. Same idea. Anybody that's been in a design team knows that you have to, if you've got different subgroups working on a design, they better be talking to each other. You can't have any randomness in the problem. Randomness is the enemy of intelligent design. Thoughts and language are not physical. Where did thoughts and language come from? They didn't happen randomly. Anyway, Timothy, Paul finally wraps it up with his first letter to Timothy, which professing have erred concerning the faith. That's, science falsely so called. Grace be with thee. Amen. And this first to Timothy was written from Laodicea. This is an appendage on the King James Version manuscripts. The first to Timothy was written from Laodicea, which is the chiefest city of Phrygia, Pachytania, and so ends it. When he says, grace be with thee, the thee pronoun is the second person plural. People miss this. What it really says, grace and peace with all of you. Paul had the entire church in mind when he wrote this letter. It wasn't just a private little note to Timothy. And all the church had a responsibility to hear and obey it as well. And so do you and I today. This letter is written to us. And we want to take a special note of the first verse of chapter 4. The doctrines of demons and all of that stuff. Okay, for the next session, I want you to read 2